Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Jørgen here from the Danish Energy Agency. And I'm glad to see there are a lot of people attending this workshop. So the background for this, as you all know, we have been having a lot of meetings. We have been discussing timelines and so on and so forth. I would actually like to take this chance to say thank you to all of you because you have done a very good job. As you may know from our side, the most important thing of this project is not only to do the projects that we are doing, but to convince even the government that working the way we do in this project is valuable and is a good way to improve energy efficiency in the industrial sector in Vietnam. And we seem to have gone a long way down that road now that the energy efficiency law is under revision. And we see that this kind of support will be enabled according to the law if the law is passed by the National Assembly. So I think we can all feel that we are part of this success, and also we can hope that we will have the possibility in future to continue this kind of work, to continue providing high quality energy audits, feasibility studies, and so on, provided by or financed by support from the government in some way. So I hope this should be encouraging for all of us, and we know it is a long way to go, but we also feel confident that you guys will be able to make a good business on this kind of work. Yeah. And so now we have received and approved more or less 6 audit reports, and they all have very good proposals. And we also start seeing pre-feasibility applications. We now understand, when we see these, that we understand that there is a need to clarify what is a pre-FS, what is an FS, when do we need, and why do we need a pre-FS or an FS. So we will have that focus today, and we want you to read these guidelines that we have made, because sometimes we honestly feel that you may not have read the audit guideline, the pre-FS or the FS guideline before you start on the work. So please refer to these documents very carefully. If you feel that there are some things that are not clear or hard to implement or whatever, let us know, because these are live documents and we will update them from time to time.
Please mute your mics when you're not speaking.
Okay, so, but with this, I will hand over the floor to Fridolin and to implement this workshop. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm very glad. I'm very looking forward to having this workshop. I think it's a very good opportunity that we all get together and have some clarification regarding these guidelines, and also that we are more precise maybe in our expectations to the outcomes of these assignments and these projects that we will ask you to do. Also, I think it's a good way also to have this sort of community where we can share experience, because the guidelines are as you might have seen, is in draft versions. So they are sort of live documents. So at some point we will collect input to improve these guidelines to make them even better also as we go along. So we don't have guidelines that are not as optimal as we could expect. So please feel free to, as we go along, also when doing these different studies, to comment or send comments or any reflections on these guidelines. I will just share my screen. Good. Can you see the presentation mode? Or are you seeing my emails or something else?
It's the presentation mode, yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
good. Sorry. Yeah. So today, short introduction. I guess Jørgen, you have made the introduction already, so we will just go directly to the sort of three main topics that we have today. We have this anonymous report, and then we have the pre-feasibility and feasibility studies, and then just shortly, what is the sort of the scope and our expectation to these two studies. The reason why we have taken sort of the chance of clarifying this anonymous report, because this is a part of the audit that you're all doing at the moment. So to complete this audit process entirely, we need to have this anonymous report in place also. And when the audit report is approved and this anonymous report is approved, then we see this audit as final. Yeah, we expect that we will use about 1 hour for this. All right. Jørgen, I guess you don't have anything to add to this?
No, please go ahead.
Okay, good. So putting this into a context, why are we doing these studies and why are we working the way that we do, is in order for us to be as efficient as possible when we are developing projects that support a company's strategy. Let's say the company wants to be carbon neutral, as an example. How do we support that strategy? And to begin with, we are doing the energy audit. And based on the energy audit, we develop a lot of projects. We have this called gross list or screening list, where we have all projects, good and bad. It's just whatever comes into our mind while we are doing the audit. We collect all ideas, put them into a long list, and then we start to evaluate these ideas. Some of the ideas are so promising that we say, okay, these ideas we want to develop further. We will develop them to a level B, a basic level, where we have we can calculate the energy savings, estimate the investments, cost savings, scheduling, any sort of risk, so on. So start getting idea of the extent and the potential of a project. And then based on this level B, we will develop the project even further to a level A. And these are projects that, together with the company that we are doing the audit with, we select these level A projects. So which projects are the most promising and which projects are most in line also with the company's strategy and other activities. So we select a number of projects for level A, where we develop them even further, where we add some more elements to the study, and some of the uncertainties, we clarify them. So it's easier to make a decisions for which project will be candidate for these pre-FS and FS. So this is where we are at the moment. We have developed this level 8, the advanced level, and then we are choosing which candidates will move forwards for the pre-FS and FS. And that's the project development phase that we are in now. And it could be, let's say the project is very simple, then there's no reason for going for both a pre-FS and an FS, because what we would like to end up is a final investment decision, so that the company or an external investor decides to make an investment in a project where we will change something. So we will get an energy saving, or an environmental savings, or whatever that is aligned with what we expect from these projects. So whatever it takes to reach to that decisions, this is the aim on these, based on these studies. And today we will go a bit more into these studies here. And the reason for having such a flow, it can seem a lot of steps and a lot of work reaching to this point. And I'm not saying that you can find a project here at a level at the gross list and then make an investment decision if it's a very simple and easy project to make this decision on. The whole idea is that you will not spend time on developing all the projects on the gross list, spending a lot of money, and then you end up deciding that none of them are feasible, and then you're just wasting a lot of time and money on developing projects. So try to slowly narrow it down and be as efficient as possible in this process. So that's the basis for doing what we are doing here. I'm just briefly going to this anonymous report. This anonymous report is a report where we, or a document where we will highlight some of the key elements in the audit report. And this will serve as inspiration for others to read this report and be inspired both on how you've been working with auditing, but also on the project that has been developed. It could be a similar sector, it could be the same sector, it could also be other sectors that could be inspired from such a report. So the aim is here to make a number of anonymous reports. And of course, the challenges here is how we can extract information from the audit report and put it into this anonymous report that can be made public and available without compromising any confidentiality. And it's of course important that when you write this anonymous report, that this has been sort of cleared by the company that we are allowed to publish this report afterwards. In the reports, there are some guidelines, and they are put in brackets, or some are highlighted in yellow. And the intention is this is just guidelines. So when you submit the report, remove everything within these brackets and put in your own interpretation of from the audit reports. And one thing that goes actually for all the studies that we do, whether it's the audit, whether it's the pre-feasibility or the feasibility, is that you as an auditor, an expert, you are responsible for making a clear summary where it's very clear what is the outcome of this study, this audit. What do we recommend that the company will do from here on and onwards in order to support the company's strategy? And I know it can be kind of, it's hard to make some very clear guidance because you could risk that you will be, that the company will claim that you have made some kind of recommendation, and if it's not feasible, then you will be in some kind of trouble. But I don't think this is, this is not the issue here. How we should go about it is that in such a study, it's okay to make assumptions. It's because we cannot, let's say, we cannot predict the variation in energy prices, for instance. Nobody can claim that you should be responsible for how the energy prices will develop. It's just important that we have clearly stated that now we have assumed that the energy prices, for instance, are as they are now, and they will develop in a certain way. And maybe we can also say, what have we based this assumption upon? Then you can always challenge this assumption, but you have made it very clear how have you made this assumption. So it's important that in a resume or in the conclusions on such a report that we do not just end up with a list of different projects. No, we should end up with clear recommendations that these are the projects, they are selected because of this and that, and this is the way forward. So it's all these studies that we do is to support the company in making decisions, in investments, to support any strategy that they might have. So this is why we are doing what we're doing. If I just quickly go through this anonymous report, and I will bring up the reports here so we can see the documents. Can you see the report?
Yes.
Okay, good. I cannot see you, so if you are not, okay, this is the report format. Here are the brackets. So try to insert, for instance, insert the sector. What is this audit report about? Which sector does it concern? Insert name of the auditing company. So this could be your name as an auditor. Here are just a guideline. This is what I've highlighted just before. And then we have small introduction. It's very generic introduction. Here I've just highlighted some in yellow also, so you remember, but insert the sector and the name of the auditor or the auditor company here. So it's clear who has been performing the audit. And then, of course, a summary where we summarize the outcome of this, some of the main focus areas, the projects that seems especially attractive. And then we have a description of the enterprises. So a simple overall introduction of the company. And then here is, of course, it's important that can we use the company's name, the specific company, or do we need to refer to a sector? And this is something that you need to get clarified with the company. Is it okay that we use the name in this context? So put some more words to it, description of the company, annual energy consumption, carbon footprint, etc. All this is information that should be found in the audit report. So it's just finding the information, putting it into this report and making sure that it is in a format that is acceptable for the company. So for instance, if we have the total energy consumption, we could round it up or down to the nearest 100 megawatt hours, something like that. But that is for you to decide. Description of the utility system. That could also be accomplished by illustration. You could consider using the illustration from the energy mapping. Description of the process, the same. What does the company produce? What unit operations are they using? So all from the audit report. Here, methods to identify the projects. And it's just reflecting on how you've actually, in this specific case, so try not to be very generic here, but try to be very specific on this specific sector. How have you been working on developing these projects? How have you identified them? What are sort of the main obstacles or barriers around developing these projects? And then how have the project been prioritized? So try to describe what is important here. And that could be, let's say the company, they have a strategy on being carbon neutral. So one priority is making sure that the projects with the highest carbon reduction potential is the ones that is gets a higher priority in this case. Then there are all the project identified, and this could be the screening list or the level B. That's up to you to put in these projects so you get an overview of all the project opportunities. And this is just to serve as an example also for others. When they read the report, they can get inspired, so they can see, okay, within the processes, there are all these different opportunities. Within the thermal systems, there are another different opportunities, and within the electrical, and so on and so forth. And then finally, the ones that are sort of selected at level A, we have this template that we're also using in the audit report. And hopefully we can present all the project that has been identified within the audit report. But there could be some projects that are relatively critical or must be anonymous, or that the company do not want to share for some reason. Then of course we cannot include it in this report. But I think you should try to have this dialogue with the company. Which of these projects can we include? And if we make them anonymous, for some reason, maybe we will remove, if we're using, let's say, screenshots from the control systems or other sort of more sensitive information, we can remove that from the project description and maybe just making some simple illustrations instead. So this is the whole point about this anonymous report. So the pre-feasibility study, what is the importance, or what's the purpose of making such a pre-feasibility study? A pre-feasibility study is to make sure that the decision or the project that has been selected is the right solution. In that sense that, let's say we were focusing on optimizing a drying process, and our main project idea is that we will change the drying technology to another specific technology, and this is what we recommend the company to do. So in order for the company to make a decision that this is the right way forward, then the pre-feasibility study should support this decision, in the sense that you will be able to clarify that this, when we're looking at the drying, that this is the right solution. And by doing this, you have investigated other alternative solutions for this drying technology. So making sure that if we should change the technology, that this is the right way forward. So this is the sort of the main purpose of this pre-feasibility study, to secure that the client can make a decision that this project is the right project moving forward, developing into the feasibility study, so they can make a final investment decision. And keep in mind that we try to narrow this down step by step. So we could also just jump into making one big study, but if the conclusion is that this is not the right technology, or the company is not confident that it is the right technology, then we will just spend a lot of time and also money on doing these studies. So again, then look at this triangle that I illustrated in the beginning. The whole purpose is to narrow down sort of the risk of spending time on developing something that will not end up being a final investment, and that will lead to savings by the end of the day. Yeah.
Fridolin, may I just come up with one
Sure.
added point here, that yes, I fully agree with this, and you should consider, when you do the energy audit and you identify this level A project that is the preferred one, you need to consider what is it that we don't know yet about this project to be able to make a decision. So what are the main uncertainties? Fridolin mentioned it could be, should we use technology A or B? It could also be, does this fit into our production line? Can we actually produce the level of quality of products with this new technology? All of such things that, so you should kind of go into the brain of the management and consider from their point of view, what do they need to know? And you won't need to answer those questions, but those are the questions that need to be addressed in the next step, which would be the pre-feasibility study. And also your application for support to pre-feasibility study needs to clearly outline what are these uncertainties that are the main ones that you want to address.
Yes. One question or one sort of challenge that I always give myself when I do these kind of studies is I ask myself, if it was my company that were to do this investment, how will I make sure that I have that I can make this investment based on sufficient information that I will be confident in making this investment? So try to think of it, if it was you that should make the investment, have you clarified everything, making sure that this investment is a good investment? I hope you all have access to these guidelines. They're on the website, for the DEB3 website, so you can download them. They're both in English and in Vietnamese. Basically, the content is stated here. There's just the aim of the pre-feasibility study. So what I just highlighted before is also set into a context of the other studies or the other work, the auditing, the feasibility studies, and so on. Then there's a summary. There is a background, purpose, and scope for the project. This is like setting the stage for the project. Why do we do this project at all? Why is it important? Where would it take us? Then there is the analysis of baseline project. So what is the baseline for making these studies? Which data do we use? How have we made this project? Are there any sort of projections in developing in energy prices, or what is the basis for developing this project? And then there is the solutions, and then there is alternative solutions strategies. And I will just share this document. I will just go quickly through it, and this was not the right one. Feasibility. Here it is. Can you see the report? If you're nodding, I cannot see you, but hope we can. So this is the first part of the report. You see it, good. So summary. Again, then it's important when this report is being summarized, then if you are the management of the company, then if you only read the summary, you should have a clear understanding of the project, the risk, and the different elements associated with such a project. So, for instance, it could be, how does it impact our competitiveness, the environmental footprint? Is there any pollution issues, environmental issues? Does it improve working conditions, and so on? So this is also something that could be brought up here. Are there any risks associated with the project, and so on? So actually, by just reading the summary, then the management can make a decision of how to move forward. And then, of course, if there's something that needs to be clarified, they can dig in to the report and study it in more detail. And the background, there's a justification of this study. Why do we do it at all? Highlighting the existing situation. How does the enterprises expect to develop? So let's say we were doing a project on the central boilers, and in the future, the enterprises will expand their production capacity. So that needs to be reflected somehow, that we have taken this capacity expansion into account when we develop such a steam project. So we don't do something that is only very short term or very narrowed, but we also look into the future, that this also reflect whatever goes on in the company. And here we outlined other sort of relevant alternative to this specific project. Yeah. So based on that, we have sort of a fairly good idea of the basis for the project. Why do we need to do this project at all? What is the sort of basic conditions from the company perspective to do this? Then we do the baseline sort of analysis. Again, then what do we need to do? What is important here? Is it energy efficiency, replacement of existing worn out equipment, capacity expansion? Here we list sort of the main areas that are reflected or are affected by this project. So could it be certain installations around a certain area? Do we have enough space? Which utilities system does it involve? Are there other processes that are affected by this? And so on. And then the basis for the design basis for the project, present and projected capacities, present and projected baseline data. So making sure that all these different elements that has an influence on the project is clarified. And this is a table that can support you in sort of justifying and also making sure that this is aligned with the enterprise. So saying that, let's say to this year, this is how it will look, 2025, and then 3 years ahead, this is how it will look, and then again 3 years ahead, this is how it will look. So we have sort of a trend in how these different elements that has an influence on this specific project will develop over time. And then here, other relevant data should also be, if there are some other data that does not fit into this table specifically, it could also be environmental impact on air pollution, water pollution, other. It could be new regulation, but something that has an effect on this project. So as an example, if we know that in 3 years' time, there's a new law sort of strengthen the regulation around a certain element that has a pollution for your wastewater, or that will pollute wastewater, then this should also be reflected in the study. And then now we have sort of set sort of the boundaries for this solution. We have the boundary from the company perspective. What do they aim at in the future? And we also have looking into other alternatives. We have looking into how do we project that different parameters will develop in the future. And now we will start working on this specific solution. So describing the main sort of principles around it, the main equipment, what is sort of the capex, so the investment, what's the magnitude of that, the operation cost, environmental impact, and other sort of non-energy benefits. And each of these elements are sort of exemplified and described a bit more further down here. So for instance, it's always nice to have an illustration. It can just be a very simple one like this one. So, you know, what are we actually talking about? Making sure that there's no misunderstandings or anything if it's just made verbal. But if you make this illustration, it often becomes very much clear what we're actually doing. The key equipment, what equipment does this include? So in this case, we are looking at a new boiler. So it's a steam boiler technology. We have some capacity, some operation data, and there could be some comment associated with it. So here we have, first we have the system principle. Here we have a description of the key elements or key equipment associated with the project. The investments, what type of investments is needed. And this is in relatively rough terms. It could be good to maybe, let's say if it's a boiler investment, then ask for a budget price from a boiler supplier, but maybe this new steam distribution system that could be taken from based on experience or similar. So you build on this, but maybe it is always good to maybe some of the main element to have that as get that as a budget price from a supplier. Then the energy savings, how is that calculated? What's based on? Change in operation costs. So we have the savings, we have the energy supply. So there's a lot of different elements that has influence on the actually operation costs, and it's important here to address these different elements that can affect the operation costs. Then we have the non-energy benefits. It can be hard to actually quantify this financially, but it would be good to somehow address it, even though we might not be able to price it directly. But yeah, financial analysis of the solution. Simple sort of financial analysis should be made in this pre-feasibility study, and there are more specific guidelines on detail on the financial analysis in this feasibility study. So you can also look at that guidelines. Then there are the other energy benefits here, quality gains, flexibility improvements, space requirements, a lot of reduced labor costs. So a lot of different elements can also be taken into account in these studies. And then there is the alternative solution. And this is just when we have been looking at the different solutions. So we have the primary solution that we are recommended, but if we could highlight here the alternatives, and of course we do not expect that you will detail all the alternative solution to the same extent, but we need to have sort of the magnitude of the alternative to be able to justify that the main solution is the right one moving forward. And then there could be a number of other elements or questions to address as a part of the feasibility. For instance, risks. Are there any risks associated with the main project here? Is there any permits issues from stakeholders? It could be neighboring, customers, supply chain, and so on. And then the financial strategy, how will this be financed? Is it own financed or is it by external financing? And then finally, the conclusions, where here are some elements that we would prefer will be included in the conclusion, but you're free to also include other elements in the conclusion. The importance is here that you sort of put yourself in the decision maker's position. So if you should make the decision moving forward, what is important in this context? I don't know if there's any questions related to that. Otherwise, I will move quickly forward.
So then we have a question here.
Yeah.
I think it is referred to table 3 in section 4.3. There was a question about how do you calculate the level of certainty for assessment? In pre-FS report, if you can open the guideline.
Yeah.
Section 4.3.
4.3. Yeah.
Yeah, and the table 3, I think the fourth column.
Yeah.
The question on how do you calculate or how do you evaluate that?
Yeah. I think this is a very it's very hard to calculate precisely, but the level of clarity of this assessment is, let's say that you will ask the vendor for a budget price. So what I normally do is, okay, when I get a budget price, how certain am I of this price? Is it within plus minus 10%, or is it within plus minus 20%? But if I get a budget price, then the sort of uncertainty will be reduced. But because now I've actually asked somebody, if I will base it on experience, the uncertainty might be slightly higher because the figures based on experience, there could be a number of factors from these other projects that might not be specific to this one. So it could be slightly higher. So I think this is how you should treat this level of clarity of this assessment. So it's more like not a verbal, but you can put a figure on it, but it's also nice. You can put it into the comments. What is sort of what is the basis for making this assessment? Yeah. I don't know if there was another question.
No, I think that's it. Yeah,
Okay.
You can go ahead.
Good. I will just go to.
But I would encourage all the participants to please drop your questions in the chat so that we can pick it up whenever there is.
We just now had another question from MENA team actually in the chat.
Okay.
I think maybe because we have only 12 minutes left, maybe we could collect the questions from the chat, just write them in the chat, and then we can answer them and share them afterwards. Would that work, Johan, Rahul? You think?
Yeah. We can collect the questions.
Yeah, good idea.
Because otherwise, I think we'll run out of time. Yeah. Okay. So the pre-feasibility study here is a study. Now we have selected the preferred solution in the pre-FS, and now we need to develop this solution further, so we have certain about the capex and the opex, and we can end up with a final investment decision from the company. So that's the whole point of making this feasibility study, making sure, deciding, is it feasible or is it not? And is it worth making this investment? I'll go slightly faster through. But again, then the scope of and the objective to highlight this, the technical specification, the financial analysis, non-energy benefit, and here we have the sensitivity analysis. So choosing figures that has an impact on this specific decision. So it's very important that when you do such a sensitivity analysis, that you do not just sort of choose some figures randomly, but you justify why will you make the sensitivity analysis based on energy prices, for instance. Is it because you are expecting that these prices will change over time? If yes, you can justify doing this sensitivity analysis. Then there's social, environmental assessment. There's the risk and mitigation strategy. There's the implementation plan, and finally, conclusion. And yeah, the report, as you see it here, I will just go straight to it. Introduction. Then there's the scope and the objective of the report. Why do we do this project? So it's like summing up from the pre-feasibility study. Why is this important? What's the goal of it? And then we start working on the technical specification here. So in the pre-feasibility study, this is the solution that we have made. We analyze and study this solution even further, and then we come up with the proposed project where we have a number of sort of technical specifications that needs to be addressed. And here are some examples that you could consider working on if it makes sense in this specific project. Then there could be a sort of you could look into what are the preferred suppliers. So let's say, again, if you are doing a new boiler station, which suppliers could actually supply this equipment. So we have outlined these suppliers. Then there's the solution design. Where will it be located? So now we are expanding this design from just having a simple illustration. So now we also need to look, where should it be located? How will it be integrated with the existing systems, and so on. We are not doing detailed design here, but we are developing the project to an extent where we can actually make a investment, so we can see how much does all the main elements cost of this project. Then there is the whole financial analysis of the capex investment here, and there's an example here of elements in the capex that should be considered. And there's again the OPEX, so it could be savings, but it could also be increased in, let's say, workers' cost of work labor or whatever. But these should be balanced also looking into this. The energy saving, making sure that the different elements in the energy saving is, if this is the case, are included. It could be tax, transport cost, and so on. Greenhouse gas savings. So if this also is an element and it contributes to a financial element, then that should be included also. There could be tax issues, inflation rate. So setting the stage for making the financial calculation. And here there is a number of different sort of financial elements that should be considered. For instance, the WACC. It could be if there's incentive schemes where we could get grants for such a project. Assessment of the financial viability of the project. And here are different figures to evaluate such a project, and they are described further in this in the report here. It's very standard, so I guess you will know them already. But and then of course there is this economical assessment of analysis of the project. Then there is the non-energy benefits. that should be included also in this study. So production quality, capacity gains, free of space, and so on. So including these elements into this whole study. Then there's a sensitivity analysis, and I would like to stress here that this is just example. It's important that you, as an expert, you evaluate which elements are critical for this project and why it's important to use them in such a sensitivity analysis. So we don't end up with some more or less random, or you just take this list and you make sensitivity analysis based on that, but it should be based on solid argument. Why is this important? So if we find it important that we know that the steel prices will increase, so our investment in piping and so on will increase if we don't make the decision now, if we wait in 2 years. That could be one example. If the energy prices will change, that will affect our payback time maybe, or the net present value of the investment. So these sensitivity analysis is important to justify, and then you can of course make these. Then there's the social and environmental element. So describing here, sort of, does this project have any influence on job creation, public health, labor safety, emission, pollution, quality of life, etc. So are there any other sort of benefits, but it could also be drawbacks, of course. These are also important to highlight, so we don't get a glorified picture of this project. Then there's the risk and mitigation strategy. So there's the risk analysis, trying to see what kind of risk is associated with this project. And here's an example of sort of a risk matrix, and also example of how this could be used in terms of likelihood and impact. Then there's the implementation plan. So how will a possible implementation look like? How long time will it take? What type of elements are involved in such an implementation? And then there's the final conclusion. And finally, the recommendation, of course, of how the company should move forward. So it's important here that it's very clear from your side as an expert, what would you recommend the company to do now? Is it totally clear that they can make an investment based on your study? Then there's some an appendix just for inspiration for other non-energy benefits that you could look at, or you could just use this template, this table as an input. I will, sorry for running out of time. It's very important here that we are aligned also when we do these studies. So here I've just highlighted what is the importance of the pre-feasibility and the feasibility study. There's nothing new here. This is just what I've just said. And we have again then tried to estimate, if we were to do such a study, how much time do we expect to be spent on such a study? And this is almost equally amount of time spent on the pre-feasibility and the feasibility study. And we expect also for each study around 50 man days. And that is often equally divided by a senior engineer or junior engineer. So this is in average. And of course, if the project is very simple, this could be a lot less. If the project is very complicated, it could be more. But so it's just so we are more or less aligned. This is sort of the average magnitude. And I think you have by your experience, you will know what is a simple project and what is a very complex project. So it's just so we are aligned in terms of hours spent on that. And of course, you are very welcome when you are making your proposal for these studies, you are very welcome to reach out and discuss how will we actually deal with this. Is this sort of a simple project, or so if you want some support from our side, you are welcome to reach out. Yeah.